Agent Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And a quick reminder to everyone out there, hit that follow or subscribe button to get our fresh content when we go live or post it new. Definitely do it. If you don't like us, tell us how you feel. It's the best way for us to get better is to hear what you don't like about us. So Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
Well, Al, usually, we got other stuff going on in our stream with our little chat nights, but we decided as a collective to honor the day of boycott of Twitch, to bring to the attention to everybody the inequality and all the hate speech that has been occurring to marginalized groups recently on Twitch. So we decided to record today's topic offline. We'll post it the following day, which is tomorrow, or today for everybody who's going to see it. And we'll be back next week, as usual, 10 p.m. doing our Twitch thing.
10 p.m. Eastern.
Ah, yeah. Would you say it?
So, like what Dean said, it's been we didn't record last week. There was a whole bunch of personal stuff going on. It's been it's been a really hectic few weeks for us. So we didn't really have time to come up with one cohesive topic that we could argue about. So, when stuff like this happens, which happens a lot because we're a bunch of lazy asses, we usually go to the Cypher Unlimited Discord, for fresh ideas, which is, that if you haven't join the Cypher Unlimited Discord, it's never barren of great ideas for us to make videos. So what I did was I basically went through all the major conversations that were occurring in the last, week and a half, conversations and discussions on the server. And I picked some interesting topics for us to analyze and discuss. So I broke it down into, I believe, 4 or 5 topics that we could chat about. And, once again, 5 topics. We didn't really go think in depth about these topics. So you're going to hear our first thoughts on these topics off the top of my head, and hopefully, as the discussion occurs, we can formulate a more opinionated, decision on what our opinions are. So, a more concise decision on what our opinions are.
Well, a couple of them we probably a little bit more versed in because we have been seeing them for a while, and we responded. Yeah. But yeah.
Speaking of which, this is one that we have been seeing for a while, and I think it's actually a very good one. So let's break this one down. Does Cypher System, or all of Monte Cook Games for that matter, have enough VTT support or virtual tabletop support?
It's definitely talked about a lot.
well,
it's a lot to chew at one time, right?
If you think about it, the people who use VTTs are going to tell you it's not enough. Who use them as VTTs are set up is going to say it's not enough. But personally, for me, when I look at it through the lens of the type of GM that I am. And I think Cypher has plenty. I mean, I could use a few other things, but what they have out there is more than enough, because Cypher is cinematic in nature, and Cypher is a visual medium. It's a lot of theater of the mind. It's not grid-based. It's not, that type of idea. But I can see how it could be used since it is virtual. So that's my initial response.
You want to go out, or you want me to go before?
No, so I'm basically with Dean on this one. I can see why, or it's very easy to see why people, or what people want in more VTT support. But I'm in Dean's camp on this one. Due to the nature of Cypher System and how it's run and all that, just the soul of the system, you don't really need that much to get going. And you guys have been in my games, I'm more of a bare minimum type GM, and frankly, I personally wouldn't need too much more to feel more comfortable running Cypher System or any other MCG stuff online, because I'm already comfortable doing it.
I think for me, the short answer will probably be no. And not because I don't agree with what both of you guys are saying, because I'm absolutely in the same camp as you two. But when you have a large group of people that feels like they're missing out because A, B, or C, then that's telling you as a business that maybe you do need to expand and to hit other, just from a business standpoint. So off the top of my head, my initial reaction would be no. But I think the question's like a little vague, and we should break it down even further, because I think there's going to be reasons, cause and effect of why, like with all these questions, actually, we're going to have a cause and effect of why things are the way they are. So if we break it down, and the first question I think we should ask ourselves is, first and foremost, what VTTs are currently supported by Monte Cook Games? Because I think that'll, it'll expand our thoughts on the matter. And off the top of my head, Monte Cook Games is going by a model of licensing out its products to individual VTTs. And in my knowledge, there's only 2 currently that have a license. And that would be Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, which is well worth mentioning that they are the 2 largest VTTs on the market. So it isn't like the absence of having a presence in virtual tabletop, because they do have a presence in the 2 largest markets in that field, if that makes any sense.
And I'm going to jump right in on that because you said it. Yes, they do have a presence in the 2 largest VTT markets there are, but what people are looking for versus what's there is the problem. I listen to a lot of the things that people talk about that are not there. And I think it's more than just having a presence. I think the tools that are available is what the sticking point is, or what the argument point is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it kind of goes into the second question I jotted down, which kind of it's something that we should talk about, because I think this is very important. Not only is having a presence, but what kind of support is the community looking for from MCG's, VTT, like virtual tabletop experience? Because I think there's very different on being on every platform and supporting the platforms that you're currently on. Because even the ones that they're currently on, you could argue that they're not fully supported.
Well, that's just it. People are looking for the same content, because it's not so much support, it's content. They're looking for the same content, the same actuality that other games use. When we talk about D&D, or you're talking about Pathfinder 2, these games have a specific, they have counters and tokens and.
No, it's not even that, Dean. What I mean by support is actually having the physical books on those.
Well, I was getting to that too. But you're right. We're getting to that too.
That's the most important one. Before we even get into tokens, if you don't have the book on the virtual tabletop, that's a big, that it from an outside viewer looking in, who's just someone that, hey, I like Roll20, I like Foundry, I like Fantasy Grounds. I think the first thing that those people look for ease of gameplay, which is what I mean by support, is, can I purchase the book on those platforms to make character sheets easy? I don't have to cut and paste anything. Like, you can say what you want about Paizo and D&D, right? But they make life on Fantasy Grounds and Roll20 super easy by having all their content in those platforms.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Al.
No, I was just going to piggyback off that by saying that is something I noticed. I have mentioned recently that I have kind of delved a little back into 5e. And this is the last time I played was well before, Roll20 was, not before I was well versed with Roll20, and before I believe any of these major integrations had happened, because I don't remember them being this in depth when Anthony ran us online or when I ran online or whatever. But now going back, now going back recently, on top of having all the rules there, you can look up stuff you search for it, you can find out something really quick within the browser itself. the character sheets are set up that you just make a few choices and it kind of auto-fills itself. It's really, really handy. And I guess the detraction here with Cypher System to say is like, you really don't need all that because it's so simple, but it can be easier. Like if it did the same, if the rules were held within the site and the character sheet could generate itself basically just by you picking your descriptor, your type, whatever, it would just make life a whole lot easier.
Right. It not just easier, but it would the speed at which you would set up a Cypher game would be insane with the online. I mean, we agree. I think we all agree that when we sit down to do a game online with Roll20, the brunt of our work is making characters, and it's basically filling in that information and plugging in, those descriptions of abilities and so on and so forth. And I believe I agree with you 100%. It would be awesome if when you pick your descriptor, it immediately added, whatever went to whatever pool. It would also be really nice that when you opened up your character sheet, if you opened up a warrior character sheet, it would have the numbers preloaded, right there for you, as opposed to always having to go and change them over to whatever. So you guys are 100% right. But like I said, and then they also, people want the adventures. They want adventures and modules available.
And I could say this: I'm not. Everyone knows that I'm not a huge module adventure guy, but if they were fully fleshed out and available, like similar to like we're gonna hop on the big boys because they're the easiest ones that we understand the most. You could purchase most any of the adventures now on Roll20 Fantasy Grounds for Wizards of the Coast products, right? One of the beauties about that is if you buy the module, all the maps and images are already laid out for you.
Yeah, they're preloaded.
They're preloaded. And if you're using, the tokens are preloaded of all the monsters. So I know you could have that argument that, you don't need that for Cypher System, which is a legitimate argument, right? But I'll say this, as somebody who plays majority Theater of the Mind, if I had the maps, I'll be more inclined to drop them on the table if it's zero work for me to make it happen.
Well,
right?
here's another thing with it being Theater of the Mind too. If you have, like we all like to use visual cues, that's why you like to use so many images when you run on Roll20. If we had those visual cues, I mean, no different. I mean, first thing that comes to my mind is Darkest House. Darkest House is a visual medium that is Theater of the Mind, but they give you what you need in order to evoke those moments. So if, in the same breath, if you had a map or some places where you could place tokens, for people to visualize, it would, it would take things to a different level, I think. I mean, didn't we have this discussion once before somewhere? I think we had it. We were talking to somebody where if I describe something, it's going to look different in everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So that would probably bring things into a more cohesive focus.
So that's why my initial response was no, even though there is some VTT support. I mean, and this is like, this is like self-greed because there's a lot of other variables that we have to take into account. One is licensing out products. One is the protection of IPs. There's a whole bunch of crap that we're not privy to as regular fans.
I mean, there's probably also things that we're not even thinking about as well, because even if they were to license this stuff out to Roll20, I don't think Roll20 does all that work. I think, you got to have it kind of pre-set up. So they probably have to have somebody have everything set up to be ported into these virtual tabletops as well. And
yeah, but the reason why it isn't done though, because I think I could be wrong, right? But I think there's enough Roll20 modders that will be capable of doing this pretty easily.
Right. Probably. No, I'm not saying I'm not saying that it would be difficult, what I'm saying is though, but you got to remember there's got to be there might be something that has to do with continued support and so on and so forth.
I think the major hurdle is the financial agreement of money splits and you know, like I think that's, you know, from a business perspective, it's, you know,
it's the major kicker.
Yeah, it's the major kicker. So that's why my initial response was no, it isn't supported enough, because even on the platforms that it isn't as fully integrated as not only I hope, but I think most fans that play solely on VTT would want. It's understandable why it isn't, but I do think that that is the case. And, you know, this is what, 2021, we go, most people play at least, you know, once a month online now. It's not like it's, you know, so it's becoming more and more important to have a presence in the virtual tabletop space.
And to be fair though, the stuff they do provide I can only speak
really good, yeah.
I've never used Fantasy Grounds. It is good. The stuff they do is like, you know, the asset cards, the intrusion decks, the XP decks, like it's all the stuff they do. It is nice. It does enhance games, but it's not really support in the way that like D&D and Pathfinder are supported. It's more of, here are some nice assets for you to use.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and again, it is nice, but not exactly what people are looking for.
Yeah, I think it just requires more. It's capable of doing it. It just requires more work. And then we'll talk about because this goes into the last question before we even, you know, why is MCG so selective with its VTT support, right? Because there's a ton of other smaller virtual tabletops that are not supported at all. And I think a lot of it has to do with IP protection. You know, a lot of it has to do with the wild, wild west of certain other VTTs where there isn't much oversight on what's being modded and put on those servers. So if there's no form of oversight and for a gaming company to protect their IPs and stopping people from, you know, basically ripping off their books and just posting it on virtual tabletops for everyone to see, which I could absolutely agree with MCG stand on this, is, you know, they're not as big as Wizards of the Coast, so they can't afford, matter of fact, 99% of all gaming companies can't afford to lose, you know, 10, 20% of their game sales if someone could just, you know, join a VTT and get all their products for free. So I think that's one of the major reasons why they're so selective with other VTTs.
And I have an idea too, and it's probably just wishful thinking, but I'm thinking about the Darkest House and what they did with that. And I'm thinking that they might just go ahead and build a whole thing for Cypher System and Invisible Sun on the same lines as that. Then they'll have their own VTT for their own stuff, you know. Hint, hint, I'm talking stuff, you know.
The only problem with that is that when most people have their favorite VTT of choice, it's not going to attract new players. It's only going to attract the current players that actually play that system. You know, I think
know that too.
Yeah, one of the benefits of having your game on a VTT of choice platform, having everything there, is someone might not be a Monte Cook Games fan, but they're a Roll20 fan. And if they go to the Roll20, which is probably a bigger group,
it's a bigger pond of fishing. I get it, and don't get me wrong, I get it 100%. But in the same breath, you know, I could see, you know, I could see something blossoming in the same sense if it were a fully realized idea for MCG stuff. But that's just wishful thinking. But because we're really talking about, you know, the actual VTTs, and you're absolutely right. There is, I know personally, I would be very selective too. You know, with Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, they're the most noticed. They're in everyone's vision, and you know, like you said too, they have teams of people who, support the system, and the
I
platform.
also think that they have the actual team or the ability to oversee IP protection.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I meant. What I was saying. That's exactly what we agreed.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say before we moved on. I believe Charles Ryan told us, it was either, I forget if it was on camera or off camera, that it becomes like a quality control thing where they don't have a big enough team to oversee each of these VTTs to make sure they're being run to their standards. And again, it's understandable. The Monte Cook Games team is, people think like, this is big ass company. Well, in reality, it's like, what, 9 people?
It's about 13 people now.
Whatever it is, yeah.
You know what's it's funny how you brought that up, because we see the argument on both sides of that spectrum on the server. You have the people that argue, oh, Paizo and Wizards of the Coast do it. Why can't Monte Cook Games do it? And one of the Monte Cook Games does not have the staff or the money to sue if they're being if the IP is being violated. Hold on, let me finish, Dean. On multiple platforms, right? Because I just want to get my thought out before you.
Yeah, no, you're right though. I'm agreeing. Go ahead.
And then you hear the argument of, look at this small company that gives you everything for free on VTTs. Monte Cook Games is a big enough company, right? They don't need to be noticed like the small company that has one product that they're trying to push. So the small companies, the reason why they're giving everything away for free is to get noticed. So their next product could sell more products. Monte Cook Games is bigger than that. They don't need to do that. They already make $1 million Kickstarters or $500,000 Kickstarters. So they don't have to give away the house for free in order to get noticed. A smaller company does, right? Monte Cook Games is in the middle. They're not big enough to be Wizards of the Coast or Paizo, but they also bigger than that mom and pop gaming company that has 1 or 2 games that they're willing to give away for free in order to grow to the size of Monte Cook Games.
And then and like you said, that secondary too, what a lot of people don't understand, Monte Cook Games, yes, they are a company, yes, they produce RPGs, but these people live in multiple places across the country. They work remotely. It's not like they have an office space, a building, servers, the whole nine where they're tracking and, interacting like that. Wizards of the Coast has a whole office. You can go visit, you can go take a tour. Paizo has a whole, whole place. These people have their own conventions. Mm-hmm. So these are things that people I don't think we take into account sometimes, but
they also have a team of lawyers on retainer that are ready to sue your ass.
Right.
The IP.
Well, I mean, Wizards of the Coast has Hasbro behind them, so need we say more? I mean, I can say a whole lot about that right there. That's like craziness. So, yeah.
I mean, Charles did tell us that they are planning to have more VTT support, but I think that this is going to not make some people happy because I think they're going to have selective VTT support.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to be 1 or 2 companies, but they are going to provide more, because I do think that you should have full adventures on at least Roll20 and Fantasy Ground. And I'm a big MCG fan, but I do think that they lagging a little behind in this category, because a lot of other companies do. They should have that.
No, I would not argue that point at all. I just think, I just kind of think that's not a priority at this point. It might be swinging around. And maybe if they watch.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a priority for them, but right. I think it should be. I just think that that's the way the industry's going. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And I think that, it makes no sense for them to at least have full Roll20 and Fantasy Ground support.
Look, I'll be the first one. I'll be the first one to admit, if we had had this discussion 2 years ago, I would have been like, forget it, you know. But after living through the pandemic, after the amount of online gaming that I have done, the amount of exposure I've had to the various VTTs out there, you know, and they're coming, you know, more and more of them are coming. So my point is, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, so, you know, Monty, MCG guys, if you watch this video, you know, this is your fans talking, you know, people on our server and everything else. We're talking to you.
No, I think you will see something on Roll20. I'm almost 100% positive.
Oh yeah, Roll20 Fantasy Grounds, I believe so. But you know,
I mean, me personally, my wish list would be the Cypher core book, Numenera core book, and the bestiaries should be first and foremost on Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. You know, at least have those books on there, and we're not saying for free. Be able to purchase those books on those platforms to make life a whole lot easier for you.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I could see that, you know.
Because I will repurchase on Roll20.
Well, of course. I mean, even taking it to the point, you know, and if you guys start doing it, you know, you can actually make that. I've seen that as a tier in a lot of Kickstarters too, that they actually have a VTT tier. So that could be, you know, if you guys build it up and you put a VTT tier on your upcoming Kickstarters, I know lots of people will go for it. So yeah.
Oh, you got anything?
No, I would just before we move on, I would just piggyback and say if they did release something that, if like, you know, like the books or whatever, and purchasing said product made it so that the character sheets like autofilled and like generated the right things as you inputted your choices, I would 100% be purchasing that item.
we all would. We all would. It'd be like, shut up and take our money.
Matter of fact, I'll even go as far as say is whatever VTT platform that they chose to work out that, you know, licensing
that deal
will be the VTT that I'm playing.
Easily, yeah.
This guy right here.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's actually a good segue into the next question or the next topic discussion that came up a lot. This one actually came up recently because someone started a thread on things that they disliked about Monte Cook Games, and this actually came up a lot. And this is kind of like a pet peeve of mine because I think this is part discussion and part history lesson, if that makes any sense. But should Monte Cook Games have an open gaming license or OGL? If those that were. So, I mean, the first thing we should do is what exactly is the open gaming license? And what exactly was the original open gaming license? So, you know, people understand what we're talking about.
I will let y'all fill us in because I'm a newbie and I don't know exactly the definition. I have a vague idea, but I will let my elders. I will let my elders elaborate on this one before I interject.
All right. So basically, what it says is the open gaming license was a public copyright license, or it still is, by Wizards of the Coast that may be used by tabletop role-playing game developers to grant permission to modify, copy, redistribute some content designed for their games, notably game mechanics. However, they must share like copies and derivative works. So the original open gaming license basically allowed you to take the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player's Handbook, and basically, you know, modify the rules slightly and put out a product, and you owed Wizards of the Coast nothing.
All right, just to go back, it covered the original open gaming license was created in the 3.0 era, I believe. And It covered everything from 3.5 D&D back. So anything from 4th edition on was separate OGLs that were created. But the original OGL covered everything from 3.5 D&D to 1st edition. And it covered, actually, it allowed a content creator or a person creating content to create using, I believe it was like 85 or 90% of all the IP copywritten stuff that TSR and then Wizards of the Coast owned,
Right.
you know, at that time, because Hasbro wasn't involved at that time, I don't believe.
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't believe so, though. But the OGL was fantastic for the community and for the fans, because it meant that anybody could create using all the cool rules set, you know, all the cool rules from any of the past edition D&D rule sets. It was fantastic for the consumer because you had so many more options, you know, to purchase stuff. But when it came to the actual company that owned the original IP, in hindsight, was a horrible deal.
Right.
And for a company like TSR, or actually TSR Wizards of the Coast, right? They could withstand the revenue loss because they were a lot bigger company. But for a company like Monte Cook Games or any other mid-tier gaming company, they cannot withstand the loss of 30, 40% of sales, you know, because someone else could create an entirely different game using your rule set and become more popular than the original game you're trying to sell. You know what I mean?
And deeper than that, you know, well, not necessarily deeper, but just in the same vein of thought, when you really think about that, TSR couldn't have afforded it. The only reason it was affordable was because Wizards of the Coast had moved and been purchased by Hasbro, who is a mega conglomerate who has their fingers in everything, you know. That being said, and you're right, 30 to 40% of, you know, your revenue going somewhere else, you know, you're not making anything from it. They didn't pay for a license. They're not paying you royalties. They're not giving you any, you know, it's not even directing them back to buy your core books to say, hey, I got to buy the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook.
Originally, with the original OGL, that was the intent, right?
Yep.
But like with every other thing in life, what you imagine the intent of a person is never turns out to be what it is. Because what you got was, we're using your rules that everyone knows and is really cool, but I'm gonna create my own setting, with my own main book that they no longer, and I'm gonna regurgitate.
I'm gonna copy your rules.
Yeah, I'm gonna regurgitate all the rules that I'm using in this new book, so they no longer need to purchase. Perfect example is the original Mutants and Masterminds. That was done under the OGL, had nothing to do with fantasy, it was with superheroes, so no one needed to buy a 3.5 D&D book to play Mutants and Masterminds.
Well, not only did you not need to buy it, but they modified it enough that even having the original 3.0 rules meant nothing. They were useless to you, but it was still D&D. You know what I'm saying? But
they did the major modification in the second Mutants and Masterminds.
Oh, the major model, yeah. But I'm saying it was still different enough because I have all 3 editions. You know.
So the major point I'm trying to make is that even with Mutants and Mastermind, when they reformatted it to the second edition, right, they changed it enough not to fall under the original OGL, so they wouldn't get screwed as hard as TSR Wizards of the Coast did with the OGL, even though they originated from the OGL. You can see the same thing with Paizo and Pathfinder 2. You know, they built the empire based on the OGL. Pathfinder 2 is way more restrictive with their gaming license, so they don't get as screwed as hard as Wizards of the Coast did with the original OGL. I'm not saying that it isn't great for the community, because it is, but for companies, in this day and age, it just doesn't make any financial sense to want to give up so much revenue and so much power and oversight to people that may not share the love back in return. I mean, it's just as simple as that with me. the OGL was great at the time, but I think a lot of companies learned their lesson from the OGL. That there's a reason why you see way more restrictive licensing agreements with pretty much every gaming company. And it's not just TSR, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro that had those issues. Look at Apocalypse World. More people play Dungeon World than ever played Apocalypse World.
And it's an OGL.
So I mean, that's my argument. And I know my argument sounds like I'm a heel for the corporate America or the gaming company, but it is what it is. If you own a company, why would you want to give away your IP for free?
I wouldn't even say it sounds like you're being a heel. You're giving people business 101. I mean, I'm sorry, the idea of having a company and having a business and putting out product is to have people buy your business for your business to be profitable. So no, it's not being a heel. And again, here's the other thing about it. At the end of the day, these programs that exist, you're talking about how restrictive they are, but guess what? They're actually still giving people an opportunity to jump into a market that you normally wouldn't be able to do. So yeah, it might be some restrictions on it, but you got an opportunity.
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because that's another discussion that happens in the argument when someone, because people fantasize about the OGL because from the OGL, so many great companies formed and the whole OSR movement came out of the OGL. So many great things that were fan created or entrepreneur game designer created that, are bright spots in the game. Like a lot of good things came out of the OGL, without a doubt. The whole OSR movement, Paizo, Mutants and Mastermind, just to name a few. A lot of the indie movement came out of the OGL, without a doubt. All great things. But that's not the question we were discussing is, should Monte Cook Games have an OGL? And if you got to put yourself in the shoes of that company, it just doesn't make sense for them.
I'll be honest with you, more so than that, I wouldn't want to see an OGL for Monte Cook Games. I really wouldn't, because not with the current things, not the way things go.
Well, I mean, the OGL created a lot of bad things too. For every great game that came out of the OGL, for every great community, there was some freaking crappy products.
It was 15 to 20 bad products. I've got a couple of those over here too.
Yeah, me too. I'm a sucker for. I bought a ton of crap, and it's still people producing 5e content under the original OGL, where they can't even use all the terminology, that's in 5e because they're producing it under the OGL, which is fine. You're gonna get cool products but small companies can't withstand that. But the point I was going to talk about now is people like to bring up the DMs Guild and the Cypher Creator Program and compare it to the OGL. That's apples and oranges, dude. The original OGL had zero oversight. It basically said, here's 90% of the terminology rules. You could use this. The DMs Guild, the DMs Guild, the Cypher Creator Program, they have rules and it has oversight and it has to be sold and profits are shared between the content creator, the company, and the platform that is being sold on. It's more restrictive, but it produces a better product because you're more in line with the actual company's vision to begin with, one. And two, you use it's formatted in a way which looks consistent with the products. If you go to the Cypher Creator Program, your format is going to be consistent with what you normally get on a Cypher product.
Well, here's the thing. It's a double edge with that because I'm a member of the Cypher Creator Program. I create content. MCG gives you a slate of material to create your products. They give you templates. They give you artwork. They give you, how to phrase the licensing agreement, the whole nine. Everything is there. So it's beautiful in that respect. So you're absolutely right. Another thing that it does is, honestly, I believe it encourages people who are truly passionate about the source material and everything else to create content versus someone who's trying to start a business and make money, you know.
And that's one of the major arguments of the Cypher Creator Program, DMs Guild. You don't get paid enough, right?
You know what? How about this?
Which is true. I mean,
you know what?
We're working on a product on the Cypher Creator Program now, so I'm learning about money splits. But prior to that, I didn't have no idea what the money splits are until you and Chris for Gaza Gaming were explaining it to me.
Let me put it to you this way. The only reason you don't make gogogs of cash or whatever the case may be with this particular idea is that A, you're only getting a select amount of the fandom. I know quite a few people who don't bother with Roll20, you know, so they'll never see my product because it's not sitting on a shelf somewhere. And that's okay.
You mean drive to RPG?
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, you know, because it's, you know, it's at drive through RPG, but in the same breath, you know, I don't have to, you know, pay a printer. I'm not paying a printer. I'm not paying, you know, a layout person or and all of this, because a lot of stuff I can lay out myself. Yeah, you can go to someone and do that. And again, it's also how you advertise, you know?
Yeah,
and,
I don't think we're discussing the validity of drive-through RPG.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say before, because I feel like we're kind of hit the nail on the head with this question or topic. But before we move on, though, because I really haven't said much about this one, the OGL again, because I'm pretty new to all this stuff. I wasn't too privy to it coming live when it happened, when 3.5 was live or whatever have you. I wasn't there for it, but just hearing it in hindsight, it seems like such a interesting or again, like Dean used the word, double-edged sword of a move for the company to make, right? It's so weird. And again, it spawned good things, it spawned bad things, but to expect the company the size of Monte Cook Games to do the same thing is just insane. Like, that's wild. Like, there's no way. They would lose so much out of doing that. And what has spawned in its place, the Cypher Creator Program, is so much better because not only what you guys said, it's gonna bring in line the kind of quality that they want to see. Like, it's not going to be these, again, I don't know of the negative or bad things that came from the OGL. I'm assuming there was lots of very questionable content as far as what was in these settings and whatnot go.
And there's a lot of great content still being created to this day on the OGL. That's not the point.
Yeah,
But there was a lot of trash and a lot of good stuff.
But the fact that, again, they with the Cypher Creator Program, they have a easier way or a better way to make sure that quality stays in line with what they want to see in their products. And what I was going to say about the just the last point about the money splits, right? There are people saying they're not making enough, right? You really shouldn't be making like what I assume these OGL successful people made because they weren't paying anybody, right? This is in the Cypher Creator Program, or I guess DM's Guild, which I don't know much about, so I'm speaking more about the Cypher Creator Program.
It's basically the Cypher Creator Program is basically a copy, because DM's Guild is older, is a copy of the DM's Guild.
Yeah, so this is basically the same thing. So with those set of rules, it makes more sense that, again, you're making less because these companies laid the groundwork for you to make the money in the first place. So comparing it to OGL, and it's just not the same thing. So of course you're not going to be making the same amount of money you would if the product was OGL. It's not the same thing. And because that's not a bad thing. Like, again, they're putting in work. The company does deserve money for their efforts. Just straight up. Like
it also, which is an important thing that we didn't touch on before we move, it also protects the lore of their settings. It protects the lore and the major core mechanics of their games. it stops someone from creating a Numenera product. There's a reason why Numenera is not on the Cypher Creator Program. It's because they're still currently building on that world, right? So they don't want Dean to come in and create canon of a product that's going to become super popular, and it's going to F up a book that they had planned for 2 years because Dean created something that the community found cool and grabbed onto. You know what I mean?
And it would detract from the next product that they're putting out, or it would contradict it, and things like that have happened, or can happen. And Monte Cook Cypher Creator Program, the way it's set up, it's beautiful. It is, to me, it is actually less restrictive than the DMs Guild, because the DMs Guild is, like Anthony was saying, they're overseeing the Forgotten Realms. They're overseeing, so you can't do certain things. Certain things are off limits. You can't talk about, or you can't reference. Whereas with Cypher System, you know what? That's a beautiful thing, because Cypher basically just opened the door to a plethora of ideology. They're just protecting.
Except for, I will say this though, it's hard to argue with the person that says, hey, you allow me to create. I'm always going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to bring up, and this is actually a legitimate gripe. Your biggest setting is not on your Cypher Creator Program. Right. And that's the big Numenera, which probably I could be wrong, but I would assume the Numenera alone accounts for 50% of all the sales of Monte Cook Games. I could be wrong.
You could play devil's advocate in saying that, but in the same breath, I would, counter by saying exactly what I just said. Instead of them having to go, okay, you have to write everything that takes place in the Blight, or in this area, or in this area. You can't touch the Steadfast. You can't touch, things that happen in Slaves of the Machine Gods, and so on and so forth. They just say, guess what? Numenera is off limits. This is our world. And that makes...
No, I agree. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm saying for a person, majority of people that are adventure writers and want to make money, right? It's hard for someone to say, yo, I want to put in all this effort. Because you still got to pay for your layout, you get artwork if you want to put out a high quality product that doesn't look cookie cutter, right? So it costs some money, right? So of course you want to recoup some of that money. And
Anthony breaking up on you?
Yeah, you were real broken up for a second, but it went away.
I don't care how dope or how cool your predation adventure is. It's not going to attract the same amount of customers as if you had a Numenera adventure. Absolutely. So I can understand that argument, dude. No, that's a legitimate argument.
No, it is a legitimate argument. But like I said, that's my playground. Yeah. I'm giving you guys a bunch of other playgrounds. That's mine. And that's just how I see it. I mean, and I'm not mad at him about it, I guess being a creative, also I really relate to that. There's certain things that I have created that I hold close to my vest.
Oh yeah, I'm a big backer. I'm not arguing, but I'm just telling you from the point of view of somebody say, hey, I'm in this to make money, right? And I really want to work on some Cypher System stuff, but I want to make the biggest bang for my buck. There's a reason why the DMs Guild outsells every other of these licenses.
But again, we've had this discussion before. We all know what I would love to be doing with my day, as opposed to going to punch the clock at Tesla.
So I mean, I can understand that argument. I mean, that's a legitimate gripe. You can't.
Oh, no, it's definitely a legitimate gripe. And again, like I said, though, I ain't mad at him. That's all I'm saying. I ain't mad at him. So
I mean, I can see why people will be mad at that.
Oh, I can see why people. I'm saying I can see why people will be mad, but me, you know what? I guess the way I look at it is put your big boy pants on, shut the hell up, and work in their parameters that they allow you to. If you don't like it, wham.
Yeah, but that attitude kind of it kind of, you're gonna lose out on some really good creatives if that was the attitude MCG took.
Not really. I mean, because
you can't basically say if you don't like it, go fuck yourself, because that's essentially what you said in a nice way. Because then you're gonna lose out on all these good creators that wanna write for MCG.
If people want to write if people want to write for MCG and they want to write specifically for Numenera, then they've got to follow those rules. They've got to go and purchase those licenses.
Yeah, no one's arguing that, Dean. What I'm saying is that sometimes you gotta open it up a little bit. You gotta open it, like maybe not with the lore, but I don't think it's a mistake if they allow people to write adventures for Numenera. Like I don't see how that's such a bad thing if you're doing it on a Cypher Creator program. Instead of saying, well, you'll never do Numenera, go fuck yourself. You know,
I never said that. I'm saying I understand that.
We want to take it. You say if you don't like it, whatever it was.
Man, that's how I feel about it. You know, I mean, they're constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm saying personally, my feelings to you people out there, well, I don't care, because they're always evolving. They're always coming up with something else. You never know. So Numenera may eventually open up. But at this point, it's not, and I'm not mad about it.
Before we move on, I will say though that a compromise would be nice. Where what Dean was saying, like you open up certain areas of Numenera to discussion or writing, and you say, but hey, you can't do something in a steadfast, or like you limit it. And that would be a nice compromise, because people get what they want. They can write for Numenera, and Monte Cook Games has that, you know, control over that media that might be coming out in these areas that they don't want touched.
You see, me personally, I think they can open it up to adventures, and you could only use existing lore. You can't recreate deities, recreate original baddies. Just use the existing lore that's already out there, and you should be able to write adventures. I'm not saying lore books, but adventures in Numenera, because I honestly feel if they open that up, you will see a lot more creatives working in the Cypher Creator program. You know, currently, real good writers that are writing in the DMs Guild love Numenera, but don't want to kill their sales by writing for a setting book that doesn't produce the same amount of audience that they would get. Thanks. You know, I mean, I just think that that would work, and I think you could put certain restrictions in there, you know, where they can't actually add on to lore, you know, certain verbiage and whatever it is when they open up Numenera to the Cypher Creator program.
Yeah,
I do think that MCG will never have an open gaming license.
Oh no!
And I'll go as far to say that I don't think any of the major gaming companies that want to continue to make a lot of profits will ever have a gaming license.
At least
before we move on to the next question is, it was great for the community. It was great for writers that were trying to break into the industry, but it was horrible for the individual companies that own those IPs.
Well, yeah, like you said, it's, you know, you'll never see another OGL like that first one. Never. Mm-hmm. I mean, Wizards of the Coast they have an OGL now, but it's a whole lot more restrictive. You know?
No, I mean, they've had OGLs for 4th and 5th edition, but they're nowhere near
what it's open source. They're nowhere near as open source. So.
Pathfinder 2 has an OGL for their, but nowhere near, which is funny because they started out from the OGL, but they learned their lesson too.
Well, I think everybody who was in the midst of that was like, yeah, this isn't too good. Let's fix this.
It was great for the community though, because you had so many people break into the industry. You had so many communities build off the OGL, so many great gaming companies. But once again, it was horrible for the original IP holder.
Yep.
Next
All right,
question.
here's our next question. I think we beat that one deaf.
Yes. You want to dive into the next one?
Yeah.
All right, so next one, and this is pretty talked about, not super frequently, but every now and then it'll pop up, and but either way, does the Strange RPG deserve a full revised edition like Numenera did with Discovery and Destiny? And that's one a lot of people do want to see a revised edition for. It's brought up every now and then. They'll be like, hey, why hasn't no new Strange stuff come out? And it's definitely, we can see why people want more of the Strange. And so what made the Strange so special that people want more of it?
The Strange just had, well, the Strange just had, it had a magical idea. It brought together, I sound like Nick Fury. It brought together many special people. It brought together many standing tropes from RPGs. You could see a lot of different things in it. And the lore was strong. It had, the fact that it spawned a full-length novel, that supported it, that gave you background and a richness. It gave you vision into what the Strange was all about. Then when you looked at the books, and the books that it spawned had so much into it that you yourself, if you got into it, you got into it. It just was a draw. So that's, to me, what made it special.
For me, the Strange, when I read the Strange, right, it brought a feeling that I hadn't had from reading a RPG in a long time. It brought that the Rifts feeling from Palladium Games, that this was a setting that I could put any other genre in and never have to worry about. Like if I wanted to do a Western, I just made them go to a Western recursion. So if I wanted to do a modern game, I could send them to modern day New York City, and it wouldn't be any, I didn't need another different rule set. It was the beginning of Cypher System generic. So that right there made it special to begin with. And what Dean said, the lore was phenomenal. Like, I think a lot of people, the Strange was their gateway into Cypher System. So for that reason alone, I could see why so many people want to play it. Play a version.
Yeah, and again, the reason, again, I'm one of those people who doesn't really want a Strange revision, because I feel like what's present is enough. I can see why people might want more, but there's already so much of the Strange stuff out there, and because again, the Cypher System came after the Strange, and I think what they saw in the Strange was, hey, our system can't do anything, so why would we continue to focus on this when we can just create all these different worlds for people to play in? And if they wanted to visit the Strange, they still could, and they still have additional options from these new Cypher System books. Because it's like what you're saying, in the Strange, you can drop in any genre. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the Strange books themselves. You can pull any setting from the Cypher System setting book and make it a recursion.
And, you just said a mouthful there, Al, because all the original worlds of the Cypher System, they literally gave you little PDFs for free that talked about, incorporating these into the Strange or Numenera. So I think, that made a big difference too. I think the fact that, like you said, the Cypher System was born because of the Strange. It just opened the door for you to already advanced the Strange. So my point is, I think we got the revised edition when we got the Cypher System rulebook. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but I really do.
I agree with that, obviously, because I brought up the point. But what people are wanting from a revised edition, or I guess it would be more streamlining what's already there, like as far as translating and whatnot. But people, for some reason, and we're not of this mindset, they love pre-established lore. They fucking love it. They want to know all these juicy bits. They want to know all these little details, and there's a lot left to be detailed, if we're being frank, in the Strange universe. There's a lot more stuff they can add to it, more factions, etc. And frankly, people love it. Like, so I can see why people would want more of the strange stuff.
Yeah, and it's not like I understand the concept of you have the revised book that's the strange, but it's not. It's the character types are different. The concept of having a set of abilities and going to a different recursion and then getting a different sentence is totally unique to the strange. And most importantly, it's like what Al said, it's the lore, it's Rook, it's not the rules that they need revised, it's the lore. They need more of the lore. And different people like RPGs for different things. The lore of Numenera is what makes Numenera Numenera. And the same thing applies for the strange. I definitely think it needs a revised edition. And I think that they could take a lot of the older books and take the best pieces of those and make a 2-book set like they did with Discovery and Destiny and give the strange that treatment. And I think that would make so many fans happy.
Again, a lot of people would be happy if they made that decision, but let's be real. How many people would actually go and buy it? And of course, there is that subsection of the people who love the strange and would definitely buy a revised one. And, we would too because we're MCG fanboys. But like the average Monte Cook Games fan, they either love the strange or they don't care about it. Like, just be straight up.
Me personally, I think if you did a survey, right? I could be wrong. This is just my guess, right? But if you did a survey out of every MCG fan and you took all the settings, every setting, the Stranger would be 2 behind Numenera. I think it'll be, and Stay Alive is my favorite book.
I wouldn't argue with you 1% about that being the truth. But I understand what Al is saying. You're right. It would be number 2 behind Numenera as far as, the love. But the reality is, I don't think there's enough people that, other than people who are just fanboy it, would really be purchasing it. Because
if they did Claim the Sky, right, which I'm a huge superheroes fan, I think that the Strange Kickstarter will be more successful than the Claim the Sky one.
Of course it would. But again,
that right there tells you that there's an audience.
Again, again, like I said though, because of what we have in the revised edition, if you put in a little bit of work, you don't need a revised edition. You can, again, I know what you're saying, but you don't. I know.
I will say this though, you are most likely right about that. If there was a revised The Strange Kickstarter, it would definitely do well. And that's more, again, people who hadn't had a chance to play The Strange might be interested in getting it, yes. But damn, I'm blanking on my main point here. The main point is that even though it's comparable to, like, you'll make money and whatnot, the reason it has that level of popularity where it'd be number 2 underneath Numenera was that it was its own system. Like, it was its own, like, whole thing. It was its own whole game. It was
self-contained.
Yeah, whereas, the Stay Alive, all those other books, they're part of Cypher System. So it's kind of, again, comparing apples to oranges as far as, like, their popularity goes, because it's not really in the same realm. They're like, The Strange was, again, a whole game, whereas these things are just setting books.
And I mean, if you think about it, with the Cypher System rule book, The Strange is alive and well, in the sense that now we're getting, about 200-page, toolkits for all these genres. And if you wanted
but it doesn't give you
let me finish.
It doesn't give you the main genre.
Let me finish. Because The Strange exists, you can incorporate all of that. That's all fodder for your Strange campaign. It's all compatible. And what I'm saying is, even if you're not looking at it as the Cypher System, just taking the toolkit books and the Worlds of the Cypher System books, that's what, 8 recursions, 9 recursions right there, fully fleshed out.
You see, I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense for someone that doesn't like pre-written adventures, that doesn't like to utilize the information that's in specific books. But the majority of gamer isn't that. It isn't that. So, you know, like you can't have a linear view. If it doesn't appeal to you, you can't have that view and then box in the entire.
It's not that it doesn't appeal. What I'm saying is, again, it's a mindset. People are going to strange, isn't it? Because the book doesn't say the strange.
Yeah, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. I understand what you keep on going. Well, this is how. The majority of not even Monte Cook Games, the majority of role-play tabletop gamer, right, prefers, in any role-playing game, prefers the information given to them. They prefer the events as pre-written. They prefer the lore written out for them. They prefer to have the monster stat blocks given to them. So you, and that's,
and if you look at the toolkit for, I don't know, we are all mad here. It's written out for you. Everything is there. All you have to do is no.
Well, all you have to do, you require them to do some work.
All you have to do, but you still have, it's there. All you have to do is apply it to the strange.
So
it's not incompatible.
You can't hold a second, D. You can't expect the average person that wants to support one setting to. I'm vehemently disagreeing with you on this. You cannot expect one person to say, hey, I'm a Strange fan, or I'm a Numenera fan, or I'm a Predation fan, to have to purchase every other book to get a full feeling of the setting. That is
You're not required, but everybody wants more support. Everybody wants more books.
They want more support for the thing that they follow.
If they put the strange, if they typed on the front of those books, the strange, but left the books exactly the same, then everybody.
It wouldn't be because it doesn't explain the lore.
Yeah,
you're not going to.
It doesn't explain what more.
Let me interject here. One second.
If they understand what I'm trying to say.
I'll explain it. I'll explain it.
No, explain
what more. Please put it in the comment section.
I will. I'll explain it nice and simple. So the main difference here that Anthony is trying to, you're both again have valid points, but Anthony is making an irrefutable point. It's just a fact that these books, these setting books, they're not tailored to the strange. They're their own setting books. Whereas if they were this quote unquote the strange presents We're All Mad Here, right? There would be bits in the book describing how it fits into the strange lore, like with Rook, like with I'm not a big strange guy. I don't know all the different areas. I know Rook is one of the main ones. It would explain how it fits in there, all that stuff. I know that every single setting or whatever that's included in the strange, in all these books that they have, their secondary whatever books, they don't have these lore heavy explanations as to why they exist. But we're saying with newer books, newer setting books, people would want that.
No, and here's the reality. Stop. No. I listen.
One last thing, Dean, and then I'll let you say whatever wrong thing you want to say. 90% of the strange games are not in recursions. So that whole argument that you're saying, 90% of the strange games work on the 3 worlds from the strange. So,
and that was what I was getting to. My exact point. Everybody's talking about strange support. Guess what? Ruck, Arden, the main world. There's this thing going on. So if Monte Cook wanted to write some adventures for that, yeah, great, fine, write some adventures. But as far as support, you look at Worlds Numberless. Worlds Numberless does not.
It's a strange book, though.
It's a strange book, but it does not tell you how all these other worlds that they give you to play with, how they necessarily would plug into the strange.
I disagree because the first 20 pages of that book explains just that. That's my favorite book. I disagree.
But again,
the first 20 pages of that book explains just that.
And that's my point. If the first 20 pages of that book explains that, guess what? It's explained for everything else. You cannot deny it. Because I could take anything in the world.
Dean, I'm not arguing that they're not useful in the strange, but your argument of they don't need any more strange books because they have all these other setting books, because then you could argue that with any generic setting that uses multiple things. Like, why do I need that? I could pick up my Dungeon World book. It's going to work just as fine. Like,
dude, you're not see, this is the thing. And I'm okay. And I'm done after I say this. This is the thing. I'm done after, and because the thing is this. People, yeah, that's just it. People just want you to hold their hand because you have a book like Worlds Numberless that explains how all of these worlds fit in the strange. Why could you not apply that to every other book that you have on your shelf that is a cipher system book that is compatible to the system, that makes everything work? Now, I will agree, if they were going to do some more stuff within the core 3 worlds and that networking idea and the estate and all of that, absolutely, boom, do it, knock it out the park. But when you look at what they gave us for the strange, all the additional books showed you how stuff fit in, but it was a plethora of extra information.
Dean, and my only reply to that is when you said people want you to hold their hand, if I'm a consumer, guess what? I make that decision. You don't make that decision for me. So if I purchase a product and I want that product to hold my hand and to explain everything for me, because that's what I want to, that's my right. I'm spending the money. No outside source could tell me how I get my enjoyment or how I want to utilize it.
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm just saying. Let me finish.
I'm not saying
I'll let you go through the whole thing. That's the consumer's right. That's not me. I don't necessarily do that, but I can't knock somebody for wanting that.
I'm not taking anything from the consumer, but I'm telling the consumer.
You are the consumer wants you to hold their hand.
No, listen. The point is, you have what you need. You really do. No matter how you cut the mustard, it's out there. If you just don't like the presentation.
All right, so I did not expect the strange topic to go this way. I was going to interject to say that real quick. There's a little bit of some levity here. I know y'all are not angry. It's just funny as hell. I did not expect this to be so spirited.
It's always got to be one thing that made him go at it about.
I will say this.
At the end of the day, I absolutely think there should be a strange revised. I absolutely think they need a strange revised. I think the strange is such a rich and wonderful setting. I would love to. I'm not saying I'll bring it back. You guys know that World's Numberless is Strange is my favorite cipher system book, right? Yeah, I just really like the setting, and if they did a 2-book like they did with Discovery and Destiny, I would be super happy.
I'm telling you right now, Anthony.
A lot of people.
I am not mad at you one little bit. And then the minute the book started, they started talking about it. I'm gonna be fanboy and right along with you.
But I will say this because I'm curious to see whoever watches the video. Please put in the comment section who do you think is right on this strange debate.
Before we leave the strange, I will leave us with a joke that it's made amongst anytime people talk about strange or whatever, right? Any supplement books you have, no matter where they come from, you just think of them as the strange book. Everything is a recursion. It's just, it is what it is. The strange never stopped being developed. Literally every book ever made could be made for the strange. This is a joke that's made a lot, and I think it's funny to just end on that. Every book, any book you pick up, it's a strange book. It's a recursion. It exists within the strange. But that's that.
they did revise it, do you think they would make any major changes?
I think it would just bring it more in line with the Cypher system rulebook, just like Numenera, like just like the Numenera Discovery and Destiny. They are much more in line with the Cypher system rulebook itself. And I mean, when you think about it, it's much more in line with the Cypher system revised rulebook, because that revision brought things, to a cohesion. And the reality is this, you're right. And I'm going to say, I'm going to change my stance. You know what? They do need it, because if they do that, then everybody will use the damn books the way they should be using them anyway.
That's the one thing I would say. I think if they did a revised edition, when you had recursions, they would have to write chapters in on power shifts, all the other stuff that came after the fact. Yes. So they would have to, and maybe clean up the way they had multiple character types. The way the sheet looked in the original was a little wonky. Like, have a better looking sheet. They could probably do that as well.
And one thing I will say, again, I haven't played much of Strange, maybe 1 or 2 games, and I don't think we ever actually translated into a recursion when we played. But just reading the book, the translation rules seemed a little, like, I understand why it's there, but it almost felt superfluous. Like, because again, I don't know much about it. Like, so like if the players wanted to go into recursion, they saw, like, I can understand needing the type that does it, but like having a whole mechanic and whatnot behind it feels weird. And that's not gatekeeping, but gatekeeping is one of the best words I can think of right now.
Gating.
Or locking.
They're gating to another world.
They're locking the fun part of going to another world, changing your sheet, becoming this new person behind a role. That just seems a little weird.
I think the translation mechanics should just be thrown out. I agree with you on that, Al.
But that's about it. Next one.
So, next question is, does the MCG business model of Kickstarters help or hurt in the long run? And
this one gets argued all the time.
So, what do you think?
Me personally, I don't mind, because I know if I back a Kickstarter at the appropriate level, I never have to worry about picking up a book, whether it's coming out. Never have to worry about. One of the benefits is the MCG is immaculate when it comes to, they're perfectionists when it comes to actually creating their products and having it delivered on time. So I never have to worry about that. But that's one of the benefits to me. But I can also understand the normal consumer who wants to pick and choose what they want when they want it. And, it gets kind of, if you don't have either the cash flow or the ability to purchase, like back at everything level, it kind of creates this, I don't know whenever I'm going to get this book, because, not only do I have to wait for all the Kickstarter backers to get their products first, it creates that, like, we see those people on the server.
I'm going to say, I
know what you're gonna say, Dean. Suck it up, Buttercup.
I'm gonna say it like this.
These response to everything is, if you got a complaint, F you.
No, it's not it. Because if I have a complaint, I don't want to hear that. But here's the thing. The way I look at it is this. I'm looking at it from me as a consumer. Prime example. The new Essence 20 system that's going to be releasing Power Rangers and G.I. Joe and all of those. Guess what? Okay, great. I am so happy that those books are coming out. No release schedule. They're just coming out. If my local game store doesn't pick them up, then I'm going to have to order them online and wait for them anyway. And again, you pick and choose. So in the same respect, looking at Monte Cook Games, guess what? Monte Cook Games does a Kickstarter. I know I'm guaranteed to get what I want And if I want everything, if I say I'm going to get it, I get it all. I don't have to go to a game store. I don't have to wait for it. I don't have to, think about it. And the fact of the matter is, people who say that, guess what? It's no different than when Wizards of the Coast announces their next book coming out in September and they say pre-order it. And I just look at it, I'm pre-ordering my stuff.
No, I 100% agree. Kickstarter, the way the MCG product line is set up now, it's designed for me. I'm the 40-something-year-old professional male with expendable cash that can afford to back at the highest level for every Kickstarter and not think about it until I get the email saying, hey, this is in your Dropbox. Go cash it in. It's meant for me, right? But I will also remember the 15-year-old me that saved for a specific book they wanted and saved for months to get a specific game they wanted. And I didn't have to go, okay, this game is out only for backers. I won't be able to get this game for another month. And if I want that specific book, the 16-year-old me is going to spend that shit on magic cards or potato chips and soda.
And you know what? But you know what? And here's my rebuttal to that. I remember the 15, 16-year-old me. And I remember when they would say certain things were coming. You know what? I had to wait.
The 15-year-old me or the 30-year-old Al?
No, I'm saying the 15-year-old me. And I would literally put my money to the side. It would be burning a hole. It would drive me crazy. But
back in my days, we saved our money when I don't believe that. Every 14, 50-year-old is the same.
Dude, and that's what you want to see the books from 1974.
Yeah, I'm not saying you did, but what I'm saying is that Kickstarter wasn't around, dude.
No, it wasn't, and that's my point, though.
Assume that you're gonna say.
No, because think of it, it's no different. But you talking about the Kickstarter? The Kickstarter would have driven me crazy because they were like, "Damn, I can't get it early. Damn." But guess what? I know that there's a release date coming, no different than I did for those other books, and so that to me is just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I understand. Trust me, I was a college student once. I was a young father, with 5 kids at home. I didn't have extra cash.
And you would have been able to back Kickstarter back then.
And I did. And guess what? I'll put it this way. The first Kickstarter I backed was Monte Cook.
So then you would have empathy.
No,
people that are going through those.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. No, listen to what I'm saying. I remember when I backed the first and only Kickstarter I ever backed until recent years was the original Tallest, and dropping that $150 or $200, whatever it was back then, it was grueling. But what I did was I knew it. I had a certain amount of time. I had to work some overtime to get the money together. That was the one and only time I did it. And here's the thing about the empathy.
No, but you know what?
So hear me out. The thing about the empathy, there were a ton of. What'd you say?
The definition of empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes, not putting yourself in your own shoes.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. I was able to do that Kickstarter. I wasn't able to do another Kickstarter for what? He's frozen.
Sorry, just keep going.
I pulled up my bootstraps and I got it done. That's not empathy.
Dude, I'm not talking about pulling up my bootstraps. What I'm saying is, I get it. I wasn't able to do another Kickstarter until I was able to do like Numenera. Okay, that was years later. I couldn't do anything like that. My point, what I'm saying is though, what had to happen was that those other books that I did want that went through Kickstarter and were successful and so on and so forth, I had to wait. And I had to go to the local game store when I had the pennies together to get them. You know what?
You're not getting the point of what I'm trying to say, Dean. It's not about you. What I'm trying to say is that when you're young and you have $50 and to buy, you don't have $50 to invest in a product and get it a year from now. You have $50 to get the product that you want right then and there.
My point being exactly, you're just proving my point. You're proving my point. You are proving the exact point I'm making, because like you said, if you had $50 as a 15-year-old kid and you knew 6 months down the line that two new Dungeon Master Guide and a Monster Manual you wanted were coming out, you as that 15-year-old kid would either have to wait and not spend your money or blow your money.
Which is most likely going to happen.
Wait a minute, blow your money and, then figure out how you were going to get them later. Mm-hmm. Kickstarter is no different in the sense that, guess what? Like you said, you're old enough, you have money, you have discipline, whatever the case may be. If I was a 15-year-old kid and I knew I had $50 and there was a Kickstarter and that's how much it was, and guess what? I'm hanging on to this $50 for these 30 days until this Kickstarter is done so I can put it on it. You have to look at it.
But then you're going to get the product in 18 freaking months.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
If you at 15, if you telling me that if at 15 you had the same desires and wants for 18 straight months on the same exact thing,
the reality is, here's the reality.
Most 15-year-olds don't have that.
For the most part, Anthony.
I don't understand how I'm proving.
For the most part, Anthony, actually, it's a dead argument for the simple fact it really wasn't even a thing. We had no clue. We had no clue 90% of the time.
Yeah, so why are you shitting on the 15-year-old?
I'm not shitting on the 15. I'm not shitting on the.
You did. You said I'll save my money.
Because I used to do no. Because guess what? Guess what? I used to do that. I saved my money for the things I wanted, and if it took me 3 months to get it, it took 3 months. If it took 6 months to get it, I did it. And it's called discipline. It's called, somebody showing you the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs. Everybody don't have that discipline.
My point is, not to even get into this argument, but my point is that Kickstarter, one of the hindrances, Kickstarter is designed for a specific consumer. It's not, that's the only point I was trying to make.
I get that. I understand that you're saying it was for a specific consumer. All I'm saying is even the consumer that Kickstarter isn't built for will still get the product. They're going to get the product in the same time frame. You know what? There's no Wizards of the Coast has you pre-order their books.
You don't have to.
You don't have to. That's my point. And you don't have to do Kickstarter.
So let me circle back to
we're talking about Kickstarter, Dave. We're not talking about Wizards of the Coast.
When it comes to like Kickstarting,
no, it's not. How are you gonna tell me that?
Let me dive in here for a second, guys.
Go ahead. How are you gonna tell me Wizards of the Coast business model is anywhere close to Kickstarter?
I'm not talking about business models. I'm talking about when you're gonna get your product, how it works.
No. So even that is different. So let me just circle back here for a second. The main difference between a pre-order and Kickstarter is when you pre-order something, it's going to come out when it comes out, whatever, right? Everybody gets them on the same day. With a Kickstarter, the people who actually backed into it via this quote-unquote pre-order, they're getting it earlier than the general public. The general public has to wait longer than the people who had the money to invest a year in advance. There is a mitigating factor here though, with how nice the community is. And I'm not saying anything about sharing PDFs. I'm talking about how Monte Cook Games does have rules primers and stuff. So if you have enough friends or if you're part of the community, you can still play in these games without, and I know most people will actually want to own the book, but this is just sort of a mitigating factor in the fact that you might not be able to own the book right away as someone who didn't back the Kickstarter, But if you're within this community, have friends who did back the Kickstarter, you know the rules of the game via rules primer or something, they can give you a character sheet. You can still participate in these games. It's not the same as owning the book, obviously. You do still have to wait to have it yourself. But there is a kind of a mitigating factor there where it kind of, you don't need it right away, even though obviously most people will want it right away. It is what it is. And again, for a company the size of Monte Cook Games, the Kickstarter model just makes more sense. They'll know the demand beforehand. They'll know exactly how much money they can put into the product while maintaining whatever profit margins they need to. It doesn't make sense for a company like Monte Cook Games to revert from a Kickstarter to like a regular model, because it's too unpredictable for them. Like, their ideas are good, we know they make good products, but what if for some reason they put out a dud? They're fucked. Like, straight up, they might have to just straight up close. And that's just like a risk versus reward type situation where, again, a company the size of Monte Cook Games just has to play it more safe, and Kickstarter is just
like
more
I
safe.
said, to me, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. You know, it literally is, because my point is this: either you're paying in advance or you're paying on the day that it comes out. You know, if you can afford to pay in advance, and again, even like I said, you can shake your head, but it's the truth. If you
I'm gonna let you talk, Dean, but I'll don't interrupt me when I talk. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, if you can pay in advance, wonderful. It works. You get your stuff. You know your stuff is coming in the mail. It's there. If you can't pay in advance, and no different than the person who does a pre-order, even a pre-order, yes, I know Kickstarter people get their stuff before the pre-order people. I get that. You get it before the street date. But my point is, no different than the person who pre-orders. They got the money, they pay for it in advance, boom, it's coming. Whereas then there's those people who have to wait. I got to wait till I got a paycheck in my pocket and I can go to the game store and get it. I'm done.
All right, my point is, I wasn't arguing whether Kickstarter was a successful, because I said at the very beginning, Kickstarter is designed for a person like me. I benefit from Kickstarter. I get more than enough. What my point was to go back to the analogy of comparing it to what TSR does to the Kickstarter business model, entirely different. TSR gives you 3 books that release in January for the entire year. So you know that you're getting a product in February, you know you're getting a product in June, you're getting a product in October, right? You're getting that product. You're not, even if it's January and you want the June product, that's only 6 months.
You're breaking up again, Anthony.
You didn't hear me?
No.
The last thing I heard was you're getting the product in January, even if you want the product that's coming out in June and nothing else.
All right. Tell me where to start from.
No, just keep going.
That's when you get it.
No.
That's when you're getting the product, right? So with TSR, I mean, with D&D, right? You have this 3 set release dates. So if it's January and you have $50, you want the June product, you know you wait in 5 months before you can purchase the product. With Kickstarter, if you back a product, give them your money, you're not receiving that product for 18 months. You're not receiving, so there's a way bigger time frame difference.
Who cares about the time frame?
I let you speak, and now you interrupted me. I specifically said I let you speak, right? So now, what do you mean? Who cares about the time frame? Most people with hard-earned money that have they have a certain amount of money to spend for a specific pleasure item or an item that isn't important to their lifestyle can afford to wait 18 months for a product. Once again, I'm saying it doesn't matter, but I was just talking about the overall audience. So there is a difference between having a straight release schedule and having Kickstarter. That's all I'm saying. With Kickstarter, it appeals to a certain audience, but it doesn't appeal to everyone. That's all I was trying to say.
And again, and even with that, and I hear what you're saying.
Okay, you're right. I
mean, no, Anthony, you're saying 18 months. Regardless of the time frame, you know what the weight is. Monte Cook says, okay, if this
but what exactly are you arguing? I don't understand what are you arguing
at the end of the day, it doesn't make
what am I so you saying that Kickstarter is the only consumer way to purchase items? So then why are you arguing with me? Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand your argument.
So like, his argument here is people don't have patience.
It's an entirely different business model. Some people don't. Some people just choose not to buy their books on Kickstarter. That's all right.
And I never said it wasn't. I said that. You're the one that you keep coming at me with, you know how different it is for 18 months because you got a set schedule. It is what it is. Regardless if it's 18 months, if it's 12 months, if it's every 6 months.
No, there's a difference between getting a product in 6 months and getting a product in 8 months, or holding on to your money.
If
for 3 months, because your whole argument was that you could hold on to the money and get the product.
I could
and wait 18 months. Yeah,
I could
my,
if I had.
My thing is that my point was, yes, you could, but that's not for everyone. So why are you arguing with me if you're
the point
for everyone?
The point I was making was this. It had nothing to do with me holding on to money or not. The point was there was a wait involved. One way or the other, no matter how long the wait is. A person who's following Wizards of the Coast schedule, that works for them. They like that. They know, look, every 3 months, every 4 months, there's something. Every 4 months, there's something coming. I got something coming. The other side of the coin is somebody who might enjoy Monte Cook Games. Guess what? A year in advance that this book is coming out at this time. So guess what? I got to wait for it. So either I can spend my money and guarantee mine coming in the mail, or I can wait for it and hope I have the money at that time. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
Yeah, and you're just stating the obvious. Like, I'm stating that there is a difference, and you're like, no, there isn't a difference, but you have to wait 18 months. That's a difference. Like, I don't understand.
I said there's a wait. There's a wait, regardless.
Okay, now we're playing.
Semantics, but either way, though, what it really boils down to is
my last point is that there's nothing wrong with Kickstarter, but Kickstarter is not for everyone. That's the only point I was trying to make.
And I never disagreed with you.
And yeah, really what it boils down to is
go back and watch this video.
Patience and getting a product quicker or anticipated, whatever. But as far as Kickstarter and Monte Cook Games go, it's definitely the model they should stick with. They're not large enough to be putting out books ahead of time before they get paid for it. And at the same time, though, the last question here is what made me think of what I was going to say. How sustainable? It's super sustainable for Monte Cook Games to continue doing this because of their reputation. We know that once they put a Kickstarter out, you're going to get your bang for your buck, one. And two, it's going to be a quality product. We have yet to see something really flop from MCG. And I guess another third one is they're reliable. I think there were some delays with Invisible Sun, and that's the only one that's really coming to mind as a big one. They put out their stuff reliably. There's hardly ever larger than what they expect to be their wait times for these
most
books.
Of the time their delays are not based on them. It's normally logistical things that they can't control, like right now what we're dealing with printers and lack of paper and shipping and so on and so forth.
Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely the model they should be using, and I don't see why they would change. It just doesn't make sense.
I like it.
I will say this. Once again, I'll play the devil's advocate. I think it is reliable. I personally like the Kickstarter model for MCG. I understand why they do it. But in this day and age, I think there's a lot less what do you call it? A cash that's free at hand for people. So I do think that crowdfunding projects might take a hit within, especially if we head into a recession, might take a hit going forward. And it wouldn't hurt them every once in a while to release a product to surprise their fans and say, hey, look, we have this product coming out, just pre-order it off our website, or it'll be in stores on a certain day. Once again, I'm not shitting on Kickstarter, but, you know, like, crowdfunding isn't going to be the main forever. You know what I mean? All it really takes is for one major company to raise a ton of money in this field and really flop and rob a bunch of people to really sour a lot of people on Kickstarter. And that's the reality of things. You know, like everybody liked, what was it, Nextel flip phones until they didn't. You know, so you know, so I would just say that.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. But moving on, we got one last topic to touch on here. We already mentioned, we mentioned a lot of stuff already that falls within the vein of this, but let's just throw it out there. If you could change anything about Monte Cook Games or Cypher System, what would it be? And we touched on a lot of it already, but I think the biggest one, I think a lot of people, or I think you two would definitely agree with it, is they definitely need to get something going as far as what we call support on these VTTs, like just the ease of creating the character sheets and having all that stuff available, like the rules and whatnot within the VTTs, just makes such a huge difference for the time we're living in right now. Pretty much we're slowly easing into real life games, but still a large portion of games are still played online, and the fact that it would be so much easier, because again, it's not difficult to make these character sheets via Roll20 or whatever have you, but just seeing it side by side compared with how D&D character sheets get filled out via these same websites, and it's just night and day. Like, you just pick a few options, it populates itself, and you can make any little tweaks you might need to, and it's just so much faster.
Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, for me, it would be two things. One, on a selfish, just personal level, I want a Cypher System bestiary, hopefully more than one Cypher System bestiary or a really thick book. I think that's the one no-brainer book that should have been made, you know, because there's a bestiary in every other book, and I play Cypher System core the most. So I'd be, on a personal level, I would want that. And from a business perspective, I don't know how this could be done, but I do think that Monte Cook Games needs to develop like an active community, like how D&D has a Adventure League. But I think they really do need something, even if they do it online, but they really do need to create some sort of like carrying a character over for multiple adventures, maybe even genre hop. Once again, I don't know how it could be done, but I do think that one of the reasons why Wizards of the Coast and Paizo are so successful is that they provide a way for the community to play together on their own that promotes the brand further outward, and it attracts more players. It builds a bigger fan base. It's almost like marketing and branding at the same time by having some sort of community, actual, you know, like community
organized play.
Yeah, organized play. So I from a business standpoint, I think they need to figure out some way of doing that. But
definitely a good one.
Basically, yeah, you guys hit them. I don't see, I mean, I can't think of anything I would want to change per se. I mean, what you said, Anthony, that sounds good. I mean, actually, you know, it actually sounds like, you know, you made a point about genre hopping. That could be how they could beat this. Now, that could be the Kickstarter for Strange, to build this whole community thing. That could be something quite interesting, I think, you know, in a way to keep the Strange active completely. You know.
That's definitely a good take.
I was going to say, I thought D was going to say, and I want Monte Cook Games to steal more candy from babies.
No, that's definitely a super interesting
what?
take. You use the strange,
Lollipops for babies.
but using the strange for like a sort of West Marches organized play is definitely a cool idea, and it could definitely
it would be
revitalize
really
the whole.
good.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
Definitely,
I think
That's going to be a shitload of work, though.
I mean, but
yes.
I mean, if they wanted to do it, I mean, they could probably like really put together a pretty massive idiom, you know, and just, you know, have the strange actual or organized play, and you know, every season could hit one of their books. You know, it could be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it builds an audience. It builds, like, you know, you get the random person learning about the system and playing, you know.
Like they see it at a store being played or something, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like,
yeah, it's just a lot of work to organize that on a grand scale, you know, and it will probably be let's be realistic too, a lot of money.
So I guess with my
So if we Kickstarter, we would have to wait 18 months to get
I was gonna bypass that whole sentiment by saying one thing, if I could change it about Monte Cook Games, would be increasing their bankroll by $10 trillion so they can put out all the stuff they want to put out, hire as many people as they need to hire, and then we can have all this goodness. That's a pretty good wish, I think. Pretty good change.
That would be a thing.
Oh, but
is awesome, though, by the way.
We love you guys. We really do. I mean, and just think, you know, you make me and Anthony like argue, like, you know, very couple.
I like the debates. It makes me formulate my thoughts. I understood your point on every.
And I understood yours, and that's the funny part about it. You and I but we do enjoy the debate.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been quite a spirited video, more spirited than I was expecting it to be. But yeah, it was great. It was a great discussion. Thank you guys for watching. It was a great little talk. Any final thoughts before we give our little?
I mean, mine's is pretty much simple. Is that we brought up all these topics because these were topics most commonly discussed, and those topics got debated on our server, and it was no different with us because we all have different opinions, and we're gonna state our opinions. That's what we want. We want the debate. We want the argument. And if you have any opinions on any of these things, post them in the chat. Let us know what your opinions are. And if you have a baby, please keep it away from Dean because he's going to take the candy.
My final thought is what Anthony said, with the exception of bringing your children around me, bring them around me because they will be tougher and they'll be ready for the world. You know, because I'm sorry, you know, worrying about me taking their candy. No, I'll probably give them candy. I'm the type of guy that'll sugar them up and send them home to you. So, you know, because the kids love me. I'm a lot of fun. I just am no nonsense. That's all.
All right, Anthony, with our little spiel.
Yep. If you like us and you like what we do, you know, please give us a like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. Or normally we stream every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. You know, give us a follow there or subscribe if you wish. We have a Ko-fi set up. You know, our videos are always free, but it helps us out with little things like Zoom course. Visit or join our Facebook group. You know, we have our people discussing all things Monte Cook Games, Cypher System there. We'd love to have you there. Last but not least, join the Cypher Unlimited. Oh, no. Let me backtrack a little. If you want some cool Cypher Unlimited merch, purchase Cypher Unlimited merch there. We have a Cypher Unlimited store. All of the descriptions and links will be in the doobly-doo down below. You know, pick us some merch there. Last but not least, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server. We have the largest fan-run Discord server discussing all things Monte Cook Games. We have games being run daily there. You know, it doesn't matter anything Monte Cook Games creates. We have people discussing it or games being run there. So and plus all three of us are there. You want to argue with us? We'll be there to argue. So, you know, join the Discord group. You know, we have over 4,000 members and we'd love to have you there.
Yep. And before Al says what he says, you probably argue with me and Anthony. Al doesn't argue. He's so laid back. Al's just so cool. He's like the what do you call it? The nice breeze.
And as a nice breeze, let's I will push us away, push the breeze into the sail us away from this video. And as usual, from us at the CU, we will see you later.